I arrived at my parents' house just as they were yelling at my 6-year-old daughter. "Wash the dishes properly, you useless girl." My sister's daughters were laughing. So, I canceled their house payments, and the bank foreclosed. My name is Esteban. I'm 34 years old, and my life revolves around Sofia, my daughter. I adopted her when she was barely 2, and from the moment I saw her, I knew she would be my world. Her big eyes, her shy laughter, and the way she clung to my finger with her little hand captivated me. It doesn't matter that she doesn't share my blood. She's my daughter in every sense of the word. But not everyone in my family agrees. My parents, Ramiro and Cecilia, never fully accepted Sofia. From the beginning, when I told them I decided to adopt, their faces fell. "Why don't you find a woman and have your own children?" my mother said, as if Sofia were a mistake, a whim. My father, more direct, blurted out, "She's not our blood, Esteban. It's not the same." Those words stung like knives, but I ignored them. I thought they'd change over time, that they'd see the angel Sofia is. I was wrong. Despite this, I always tried to maintain a decent relationship with them, not for me, but because I believed family should be united. Besides, my parents weren't in a good financial situation. A few years ago, they both lost their jobs. My father worked in a factory that closed, and my mother, a secretary, never found another stable job. They asked me for help, and like a good son, I agreed. I started paying part of their mortgage on their house, an old but large house where I grew up with my sister, Clara. It wasn't a small amount of money, but I had a good job as an engineer in a construction company, so I could afford it. Every month, I transferred a considerable sum so they wouldn't lose their home. It was my way of helping, though I always felt they didn't appreciate it enough. Clara, my younger sister, has 2 daughters, Valeria and Camila, ages 7 and 5. They're the queens of my parents' house. Every time they visit, Ramiro and Cecilia dote on them, buying them toys, spoiling them, taking them to the park. I have no problem with that. On the contrary, I'm happy my nieces are happy. But I always noticed a different treatment towards Sofia. When we took all 3 girls to my parents' house, they barely paid attention to my daughter. Sometimes they wouldn't even include her in the games or activities. I let it slide, thinking maybe it was my imagination, that they didn't mean to slight her. I wanted to believe they were just clumsy grandparents, not cruel ones. One day I decided Sofia should spend more time with her cousins. I wanted them to grow up together, to have a close relationship like Clara and I had when we were kids. Sofia is a sweet girl, always smiling, always looking to make friends. I thought a day playing with Valeria and Camila at my parents' house would be perfect for them to bond. I also had an important meeting at work, so leaving Sofia with them seemed like a good idea. I told them to take care of her, to let her play with her cousins, and I made sure they understood I'd only be gone for a few hours. "Don't worry, Esteban," my mother said with a smile that now, looking back, seems fake. "She'll be fine here." That morning, I left Sofia at my parents' house. She carried her pink backpack with a couple of toys and a huge smile. "I'm going to play with my cousins, Daddy," she said, and I kissed her forehead, promising to pick her up after work. I left feeling at ease, trusting everything would be okay. How naive I was. The day at the office was long. The meeting ran longer than expected, and by the time I finished, it was almost night. I drove to my parents' house, eager to see Sofia and hear her stories about how much fun she'd had with her cousins. But when I arrived, something felt wrong. The front door was ajar, and from outside, I could hear voices, harsh, rough voices. One was my mother, Cecilia's, and it sounded angry. "Wash those dishes properly, you useless girl. Look, they're still dirty," she yelled. I froze. Who was she talking to like that? I entered quietly, and what I saw broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. Sofia, my little 6-year-old Sofia, was standing on a wooden box in the kitchen, her hands plunged into the sink full of suds. Her little arms barely reached the dishes, and her face was red, tears streaming down her cheeks. She was sobbing, trying to clean a large plate she could barely hold. Meanwhile, my sister's daughters, Valeria and Camila, were making fun of Sofia as my parents yelled at her, toys in their hands. They played while my parents forced my little girl, Sofia, to do chores. "What's going on here?" I shouted, entering the kitchen. Sofia looked up, and when she saw me, she ran to me, hugging me tightly. Her hands were wet and trembling. "Daddy, I'm sorry, I don't know how to wash dishes properly," she sobbed against my chest. I felt a rage I'd never felt before, as if something inside me had snapped. "Why is Sophia washing dishes?" I asked, looking at my parents. My voice trembled with anger. "Why do you have her here like a servant while Valeria and Camila make fun of her?" My mother approached with that "it's not a big deal" expression she always used when she wanted to justify something. "Esteban, calm down. We're just teaching her to be useful. It's good for her to learn from a young age. Don't be dramatic." "Dramatic?" I repeated, hardly believing what I was hearing. "She's a 6-year-old girl. She should be playing with her cousins, not scrubbing dishes she can't even reach. And on top of that, you're yelling at her, calling her useless. What's wrong with you?" My father, who until then hadn't said anything, said, "Look, Esteban, it's not a big deal. We just asked her to help a little. Clara's girls shouldn't have to do that because they're our real granddaughters." Those words were like a punch to the gut. "Real?" I said, my voice low but full of contempt. "So Sophia isn't real? Is that why you treat her like trash? Because she's adopted?" My mother tried to smooth things over. "It's not like that, Esteban. We just want her to be responsible. We're not treating her badly." But her words sounded empty, false. Sophia continued clinging to me, trembling, and I could only think of getting her out of there. "You don't love her," I said, looking at both of them. "You've never loved her. You've always treated her differently. And now this. You have her washing dishes while you spoil Clara's daughters. What kind of grandparents do that?" My father raised his voice. "Don't you dare, Esteban. This is our house, and we do things our way here. If you don't like it, take the girl and go." That was all I needed to hear. I picked Sophia up, grabbed her backpack, and walked out of that house without looking back. As I walked towards the car, I heard my mother yell, "Don't be dramatic, Esteban. Come back here." But I didn't go back. I couldn't, not after what they had done to my daughter. On the way home, Sophia didn't say much. She was quiet, staring out the window. I tried to talk to her, ask her how she was, but she only answered with monosyllables. "Daddy, why don't Grandma and Grandpa love me?" she asked at one point, and I swear I felt like the world was crashing down on me. How do you explain to a 6-year-old girl that the people who should love her reject her for something as stupid as not sharing their blood? "They don't know what they're missing, sweetie," I said, trying to sound strong, even though I was devastated inside. "You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I love you with all my heart. That's what matters." That night, after putting Sophia to bed, I sat in the living room with a beer in my hand, thinking about everything that had happened. The anger wouldn't leave me. I remembered all the times my parents had made derogatory comments about Sophia, all the times they'd ignored her while pampering Valeria and Camila. I also remembered all the money I'd spent on them, the mortgage payments, the bills, the favors. And then I made a decision. I wasn't going to help them anymore. Not after what they did to my daughter. If they couldn't love her the way she deserved, they deserved nothing from me. So I called the bank and canceled their mortgage payments, and also the monthly help I was sending them so they could live comfortably. The next few days were a challenge. I had to cheer up my daughter, Sophia, again, because what my parents had done to her was traumatic. She just spent her time drawing and was quieter than usual. So my routine was to come home from work and bring her toys or anything that would make her feel better. On weekends, we'd go to the park, and I'd buy her favorite ice cream. But nothing seemed to work. She remained quiet and sad. A few weeks after the incident at my parents' house, my phone started vibrating on the kitchen table. I was preparing dinner for Sophia, who was playing with her crayons in the living room, humming a song she'd learned at school. I looked at the screen. It was my father, Ramiro. I hesitated for a second before answering, but a part of me wanted to hear what he had to say. Maybe, I thought, they'd have the decency to apologize for what they did to my daughter. "Esteban." His voice sounded tense, almost desperate. "The bank sent us a letter. They say the mortgage payments are overdue." "What happened?" "You always made them." There was a hint of reproach in his tone, as if I was obligated to continue supporting their world while they destroyed Sophia's. I remained silent for a moment, feeling the anger I had tried to quell ignite again. "Pay it yourselves," I replied with a coldness that even surprised me. "I'm not giving you another penny." From the other end of the line, I heard my mother, Cecilia, let out a stifled cry. "Son, you can't do this to us," she exclaimed, clearly listening on speakerphone. "It's our house, the house where you grew up. We don't have jobs, you know that. Please, don't be so cruel." Her voice broke, but I didn't feel pity. Her tears sounded fake, as if she were acting to manipulate me. Cruel? I repeated, gripping the phone so tightly I thought I'd break it. Is it cruel to stop paying the mortgage on a house that isn't mine? Or is it cruel to yell at a 6-year-old girl that she's useless while making her wash dishes she can't even reach? Is it cruel to make her feel worthless while you spoil Clara's daughters? Tell me, Mom, who's the cruel one here? There was a heavy silence. I could imagine them in their living room, staring at the phone, searching for words to defend themselves. Finally, my father spoke with that authoritarian tone he used when he wanted to impose himself. Esteban, you're overreacting. We just asked her to help a little. It's not that big of a deal. She's a child. She has to learn to be useful. Useful? I almost yelled, but lowered my voice so as not to alarm Sophia, who was still coloring in the living room. Sophia is not your servant. She's my daughter, and you humiliated her, made her cry, treated her like she wasn't part of the family, just because she's adopted. Do you think I didn't notice how you ignored her? How you always left her out while showering Valeria and Camila with toys? I'm not going to continue helping people who treat my daughter like trash. It's not like that, Esteban. My mother intervened, now in a more pleading tone. We just wanted to teach her responsibility. We don't hate her. It's just that, well, it's not the same. Clara's girls are our blood granddaughters. It's different. Those words were like a knife. Different, I repeated, feeling a knot in my throat. To me, there's no difference. Sophia is my daughter, and I love her more than anything in this world. But to you, she'll never be enough, will she? She'll always be the adopted one, the one who doesn't count. Well, it's over. I don't want you near her again, and I'm not going to keep paying for you. Figure out your own lives. I hung up before they could answer. My heart was pounding and my hands were shaking. I blocked their numbers immediately because I knew they would try to call me again, fill me with excuses, empty pleas. But there was no turning back. They had crossed a line, and I wasn't willing to forgive them. Weeks passed, and the silence from my parents was replaced by a call from my sister, Clara. Her voice was charged with anger, practically shaking with indignation. Esteban, how could you? She began without greeting. They evicted Mom and Dad from the house. The bank foreclosed. They're on the street because of you. How could you do this to them? They're your parents. I sat on the sofa, looking at Sophia, who was building a block tower on the rug. Her soft laughter gave me the strength not to give in to Clara's words. It's not my fault, I replied calmly but firmly. They decided to treat my daughter like she wasn't part of the family. They humiliated her, Clara. They had her washing dishes while your daughters played with new toys. They yelled at her, made her cry. Do you want me to keep paying their mortgage like nothing happened? It's not my responsibility to support people who don't respect Sophia. Clara was silent for a moment, but then exploded. You're selfish. All this over a silly thing. Mom and Dad have nowhere to go. Esteban, don't you care? They're your parents, for God's sake. And all because Sophia washed some dishes. You're overreacting. Overreacting, I said, feeling the anger rising again. Clara, it's not just that she washed dishes. It's that they treated her like a servant, like she was worthless. They yelled useless at her while your daughters were the princesses of the house. Do you know what Sophia asked me that night? Daddy, why don't Grandma and Grandpa love me? Can you imagine how I felt? No, Clara, I'm not overreacting. They crossed a line, and I'm not going to continue supporting those who hurt my daughter. But you can't leave them on the street, Clara insisted, now in a softer, almost pleading tone. There are parents. They don't have jobs. They don't have anything. What are they going to do? If you're so worried about them, help them yourself. I cut her off, leaving no room for negotiation. I've done enough. For years I paid their mortgage, their bills, all because they asked me to, but it's over. I'm not going to continue supporting people who don't respect my daughter. I hung up, and even though Clara tried calling me again, I didn't answer. I didn't want to keep arguing. My priority was Sophia, and no one, not even my family, was going to make me doubt that. It wasn't long before my parents showed up at my door. It was a gray afternoon, the sky covered with clouds threatening rain. Sophia was in the living room watching a cartoon, wrapped in a blanket, when the doorbell rang. I got up, expecting it to be the delivery guy with the pizza I had ordered, but when I opened the door, there they were, Ramiro and Cecilia, with wrinkled clothes, bags under their eyes, and an expression of defeat I had never seen on them. Esteban, please, my mother began, her voice trembling. We have nowhere to go. They took our house. The bank took it. Let us stay here, just for a while, until we find something. My father, who had always been proud, barely looked at me. His hands trembled as he held a plastic bag with some of his belongings. Son, we didn't know you'd take it like this, he murmured. The thing with Sophia was a mistake. We didn't mean to hurt her. I looked towards the living room where Sophia was still absorbed in her movie, oblivious to the scene. I remembered her little face full of tears, her small hands struggling with those dishes, her sobs as she tried to please grandparents who never truly loved her. A mistake, I said, my voice low but charged with contempt. You humiliated her, made her feel worthless. You yelled at her, treated her like a servant while spoiling Clara's daughters. And now you come here asking for my help? No, you have no right to be near her. Leave. Esteban, please, my mother pleaded, tears in her eyes. We're your family. We can't be on the street. What are we going to do? You made it clear that Sophia isn't part of your family. I replied without giving in. And if she's not, neither am I. Seek help elsewhere, but not here. Not in the house where my daughter, whom you hurt without a second thought, lives. I closed the door, ignoring my mother's cries and my father's murmurs. My heart was pounding, and for a moment, I felt a knot in my stomach. They were my parents, after all. But then I looked at Sophia, who smiled at me from the sofa, and I knew I had done the right thing. They had chosen their path, and I had chosen to protect my daughter. Days later, Sophia started talking more. She had been quieter since that day at my parents' house, and I was making every effort to fill her with love, games, happy moments, so she would forget the pain. One night, as I was reading her a bedtime story, she looked at me with those big, bright eyes and said, "Daddy, I forgive Grandma and Grandpa. I don't want to be sad because of them." I was speechless. How was it possible for a 6-year-old girl to have such a big heart? I hugged her tightly, tears in my eyes, promising her I would never let anyone hurt her again. Her smile slowly returned, and every day I strived to bring back that sparkle in her eyes. She was my angel, and I would do anything to protect her. As for my parents, I never saw them again. I heard from Clara that they ended up living in a small rented room, but I didn't feel sorry for them. They brought it on themselves. And even though Sophia forgave them, I didn't. I never will. Subscribe for more daily stories.